So I don't know if it's in the new book or not. They changed some of the chapters. Everything's in there. They just might be in a different chapter. Um,
PLC logic and bid shift instruction.
yeah. What's that? You got, it said 13 in yours, right?
Chapter 11.
Chapter 11. Okay. I need to take these chapters off here. This is not in the textbook, but it's something we're going to have to understand. So addressing mode. So addressing mode is, it determines how the instruction addresses its operands. And what's the operand? That's the numbers that the instructions are working with, right? Y'all understand that? So two, we've already used, immediate addressing. The actual constant or the operand is specified within the instruction itself. So some of y'all have said a constant can never be changed, and that's not exactly true in PLCs. So in PLCs, a constant you can change it, but you have to change the actual program itself. Yeah, you have to change the instruction itself. And then we have immediate address, then we have direct address, and this is where we specify the address that contains the variable. So N717 would be word 17 inside the N7 data file, right? Indirect addressing, we haven't used this one yet, and we won't use it. But this is also available. Indirect addressing, the specified data file address contains the address of the variable operand. So this says N7, where would the operand actually be at? It's going to be whatever the N10 word wants. This guy's kind of weird, right? So it's going to be inside brackets. Okay, everybody understand that? So this is not the operand, this is the address of the operand, right? So that's why they call it indirect addressing. So it's kind of like direct addressing, but this is the actual address of the operand, right? Understand? This inside the bracket is the address of the operand. Then we are going to use this one. It's called index addressing. So there's a really neat register inside the microprocessor. So this is truly a register. So it's going to be an S24, this is the index register. And what we do here is we take the contents of whatever's in S24, and then we're going to add an offset to it. And then that would be where the address of the operand is. So what this would be, so we use a hashtag to indicate we're using indexed addressing. Everybody follow this? Then it's going to take N7. The address is going to be plus 3 of whatever's in the index register. That makes sense? So if the index register, which is a 16-bit register, so we can put anything from 0 to 65,535 in there, right? So if the index register contains, I'll do it in hex. If the index register is saying 0, then this right here would be this plus this, so it would be the actual address of the N7:3. If the index register, and I'll do it in decimal, so I'm not going to do it in hex. If the index register had 15 in it, then the address of the operand would be N7.18. That word right there. So what you do on index addressing, you take whatever's right here, and then you add it to the what? The contents of the index register, and then that gives you the actual address of the operand. Strange. We can do real cool things with the index register. We can increment the microprocessor does a lot of cool things with the index register. So if we looked at the index register when we switched it to run, it would have 0 in it. So if I don't want 0 in it, I'd have to do what? I'd have to load it with something, right? We'd use the move instruction and stick something in S14. But what it can do to it is it can automatically increment or decrement the index register and automatically go through tables. So we use index registers to scan through tables, which is really, really neat. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the microprocessor or the processor can automatically do it too. So index register, we have an index register that's part of the, that's inside, it's S724, so this would be the address if we wanted to change it, right? And then what we do, this hashtag indicates we're using index addressing. We're going to play around with N7, right? You understand? But then this is going to be added to the what? The contents of the index register, and that's where we get the address without. So here in my situation, if I had 15, then the address would be N718. This guy's really cool. Because we can increment the index register, we can decrement the index register, which means I automatically can go through a table using the same offset every time. So it's really cool. So in the next chapter, I think, we're going to talk about last in, first out, where we set up a stack. A stack uses the index register. So here's our logic, guys, and why we went to index, because of the bit shift that comes up in a minute. So here's our logic. This is not contact logic. This is logic. This deals with 16-bit words. So we have a not instruction. What would the not instruction do? It would complement or invert a 16-bit word, no matter where it's at. Which means all the ones will become what? 0, and all the zeros will become what? 1. We have what we call an AND. So we can AND things. We can AND inputs, we can add outputs, we can AND all kinds of stuff, deals with words. And so what happens is, and we'll look at this, then we can OR, and then we can exclusively. Now we don't have a NAND, we don't have a NOR, we don't have an exclusive OR, but we've got a what? What's the first one up there? A NOT. So if I did an OR and then I knotted the answer, then that would give us the same thing I would get with a NOR, right? You understand? If I and then knotted the answer, then that would give us what we'd get out of a NAND. And if I had an exclusive OR and I knotted the answer, it'd get what we get out of exclusive OR. So we can combine these or cascade these instructions to get all five of our basic logic functions. Cascade the not instruction with an and or exclusive or instruction to get a what? An and or. Okay. Then we're going to look at create a PLC ladder diagram that uses the bit shift left and the bit shift right. What do you think a bit shift left is going to do? It's going to take a 16-bit word and it's going to take a whole word and shift it one spot to the what? To the left. And what would a bit shift right do? It would take a whole word, and with this one instruction, it would do what? Shift it to the right one bit. Open the data file dialog box. Okay, so what they're saying is we can open the data file. We know we got access to all the data files, and we can look and see what's going on, right? We looked at the output data files, and we looked at the input data files, and then we'll go and look at them. Reset the bit shift left and bit shift right, shift right. And starting position. So let's look at these. Allen-Bradley RS Logic 500. All we have is 3 logic instructions, not and or exclusive. So if we're looking in RS Logic, we can look at our palette. But let's go offline with this. And when we oops. Oh, let's see. Here's compare. Computer logic. So here's a move. We've already used move, right? We've looked at move with mask. And here and, or, nor, not, and then clear. Clear's a pretty good one because we can clear out an output port or something like that. So it's inside what group? The move and logic. So I know this is hard to see. I don't know where it is in your text. Go just taking a not, and by the way, of course, when we start dealing with logic, it's a lot easier to use hex than it is. We could use binary, but we're dealing with a word, so I would be dealing with 16 bits, right? If y'all use hexadecimal, I'm dealing with 4 digits, right? So learning hexadecimal to use these is very, very, very important. So I got a hex number. It's going to be, and we're dealing with 16 bits, so that'd be 4 nibbles, right? No, red's okay. So how would we do this? How would we go to hexadecimal? We start with the least significant bit, and then we break it up in groups of 4s, right? And then we convert each group of 4 into the letter that it represents. What's this right here? I don't know how good y'all are. So what you should do, guys, is that, and what I use is I talk about in elementary school, we learn multiplication tables. Now, what is multiplication? Well, multiplication is just repetitive addition. But instead of me going, okay, what's 5 times 5? I go 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. What did we learn? We learn multiplication tables. So now if I see 5 times 5, I don't have to add 5 to itself 5 times. I learned these multiplication tables, and I learned that 5 times 5 is 25, right? Y'all understand that? Well, guys, in hexadecimal, you've only got 16 patterns to learn. How far did y'all go with y'all's multiplication tables in elementary school? I think we went up to 12 times 12 or something like that. And you memorize them things, right? You memorize those things. So if you want to go to hex, guys, all you got to do is just memorize 16 binary patterns. You don't even have to use 1, 2, 4, 8 anymore. Just memorize the pattern. So what would this be? This is a B, right? This is a 5. This is a B, and that's a B. And that's 16. Did I go 1, 2, 4, 8? No. I've what? I've memorized patterns. So how would we enter that in here? So here's binary, but I would have to enter all 16 digits, right? You understand that? So how do you enter a binary number? You just start entering 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, and what do you end it with? You end it with a B. Then RS Logic knows that you entered the number in what? Binary. If I entered in hex, this, then what would I enter? I would end it with an H. And now RS Logic knows I'm entering the number in what? Hexadecimal, right? And how do we do octal? Octal gets confusing because we use an O. We end it with an O. So now we can enter it in all of our bases, right? I can enter it in decimal, but when you start dealing with AND, trying to figure out what do I get when I AND 2,563 with 1,393, we have no idea. So you can enter them in decimal if you want to, but you have no idea what the answer is going to be, right? You understand? But if I was entering in hexadecimal, then I could figure this thing out, right? So you notice, look what's happening up here with the not instruction. Can y'all see this? So we're starting out with FF00, and he ends up, after that, it ends up with what? 00FF. Now look what happens with the AND. So we're starting off with the AAAA. So what would AAAA be? So here's an A, right? A, and we're ANDing it with what? 0, 0, F, F. Now what happens anytime I AND something with a 0, and we're doing it, and what you do, look at it one bit at a time. You can start on this side, you can start on that side. It don't make any difference. I look at that being AND up there. So what's 1 AND with a 0? All highs to get a high. All 1s to get a 1, right? Do I have all 1s? Okay, so my answer would be a what? So what would this be? 1 and 0 would give me a what? 0. 0 and 0 would give me a what? 0. 1 and 0 would give me a 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Well, what's going on down here? So this is 1 and 1. What do I have? 0 and 1. 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. So what I've done is I've brought this through unaffected, and I've stripped off this part right here. So what you can do with an AND is you can make sure a bit is a 0 no matter what's going on, right? You understand? So what you can do is you can strip off parts of the number that you don't want. And we call this a mask. So the technical term for this is a mask. What do we do with mask? Hide stuff, right? So we call this an AND mask. So what we're doing is we're covering up one whole byte of this word. We're covering it up. We're not letting it come through, right? And all we're doing is letting the portion that we want to come through.
That's to save time.
Well, it's to save time or to strip off information that you wanted to. So let's say I've got a 16-bit input port, and I want to take the information from my input port, and I want to come in and I want to send it to an output port. But I don't want, all I want to do is output, I want it to control the first 8 bits. Well, what I want to do is get rid of what? The other one, so I strip them off. We can tell if a number is equal. We can come in here and we can examine a single bit. So we got a flag in our flag register. Call our status register. So here's our status register, which is S2. Call the what flag? 0 flag. So for some reason, I've got this big old number right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I sure do. And I want to find out if this bit right here is set or cleared. Well, what I want to do, I want to strip off all those other bits. So I would come over here and I would use an AND mask that looked like this. So what would come through? So this would be 0, 0, 0, 0. I'm going to probably get out of sync. But this would come through what? 1. Then all these would come through as what? Okay, so if I did this, and then somehow I went in and looked at this flag right here. If this flag right here was set, it would tell me that this bit was what? Set. If the 0 flag was cleared, it would tell me that that single bit was what? Cleared. So we can use this to examine a single bit for some reason. Right? Does that make sense? So what we do with an AND mask is we strip off what we don't want. What we don't want to come through to our answer, we put a 0 in the mask, right? What we want to let come through, we put a what? We put a 1 in the mask. And that's the AND mask. What would we do with the OR mask?
So that number up under that, Mr. The second number you wrote out, the 0, 0, 0, 0, and 1 in the middle.
This is our mask.
So that's an AND mask.
That's the AND mask. Right? This is the number we're looking at. Or the binary word. I don't need to say number, but it would have a weight, right? So this is the word we're looking at. And what I'm trying to do is figure out for some reason if this one bit is what? Set or cleared. So what I would do is I would come over here and I would come up with a mask. And then when I add them together, and then all I would do is I would examine this guy right here, S2. :0/2. If I look at it and it's a 1, what would it mean? It means this bit right here was a 1. If I looked at it and it was 0, it would mean that bit right there was a 0. We call this a Z flag. We got another flag we can look at, and that's the sign flag. The sign flag would monitor this bit right here. Because if it's negative, the bit 15 would be set, right? You understand, we've already talked about this. If it was positive, then bit 15 would be cleared. Now, there's not much more you can tell off of AND and OR. ORs is using the Z flag or the or the sign flag. Overflow means if you're dealing with, what does the overflow flag do? We've already talked about this. Nobody knows?
You see the $35.
Yeah, you exceed the range of your sign numbers, right? So if you're dealing with positive numbers and all of a sudden it becomes a negative number, it means you've exceeded the range of your positive numbers. And this flag right here would do what? It would set. So you had an overflow. And then the carry flag, we use this for math. So if I was adding two 16-bit numbers and it caused a carry out of the 15th bit, right? You understand? This would set, indicating I've exceeded the range of the 16-bit numbers. And then we could come along and add some more. So what we can do with the carry flag is actually extend the range of the numbers. That makes sense? I'd have to figure out how to do it. In microprocessors, what we used to do is we'd come up here and we'd add two numbers together. We'll do it with 8 bits instead of 16. Okay. And then, so let's say I'm dealing with bytes, and I add these two numbers right here together. Then what would happen? I added the same two numbers. 1 and 1 would be a 0 with a carry 1. So treat 1 plus 1 like you do a 9 in base 10. Because I can't, so 1 plus 1 can't be a 1, it's got to be a what? A 2. Well, look when I write this down. See, that's a what? That's a 2. This right here would be a 1. This right here would be a what? 0 with a carry 1. This would be 1 with a carry 1. That would be 1. This would be 0 with a carry 1. This would be 1. This would be a 0. And what did I just lose? I lost the 1. But what's going to happen on a 16-bit word, the C flag would go to a what? 1. So what I could do is I could take my next word, add the two numbers, and then add the carry bit to it, and then I could do 32-bit math. So I could do 32-bit math. So I'd add the first two together, right? You understand that? And then I'd add the next two, and then I'd add the carry bit. So if the carry bit was a 0, it would be just like I didn't carry out of the first word. If it was 1, then it would add a 1, and I could do 32-bit math. Or I could do 28-bit math, right? Just by constantly doing what? Y'all understand what I'm saying? So if this came up with a carry, what I would do is I would take my next byte, and then I would add them together, right? And then I would come up, and then if the carry bit was a 1, I would add a 1 to that. If the carry bit came up to be a 0, I'd just add a 0. So I just add the carry bit. So now I'm doing 16-bit math, even though I'm dealing with bytes. Well, we can do the same thing with our microprocessor, with our PLC, right? You understand? And now what's our limit on our math? Well, I could do 28-bit math, I could do 64-bit math, but what I do every time I added them, I would take the carry from the last add and I would add it to the next group, right? You understand that? So now we could do extremely large math. But that would be, so this only comes into play when you do what? When you do math, right?
I mean, so that one carry bit, you just put that 1 there, you're gonna fill the rest of that in with 0, you leave it like it is?
Okay.
Right here, you got 1.
Well, yeah, you'd fill it in with 0. Yeah, but you just have a 1 in deletion it from there. So if you got a carry from this one, then you'd add 1. But you're gonna have to add something, right? Or you'd add 0 if you didn't have a carry.
Okay.
And then you could extend the range of the math. So here's the flags that's available to us and where they're at. Yeah, so over here in our status register.
Right there. Save file.
And then where's the flags at? Math right here. So here's the carry flag, right? Here's the overflow, here's the 0 flag, and here's the sign flag right here. So it's called the S2 register, but we've only got one status register, guys. So guess what? When you address it, you don't have to put 2 up there. Because we've only got one status register. So notice the address they give up here, they say S what? Oh, yeah, and then they just put a bit. So this is something that we found out real quick. All your books teach S2, which is what it is, but when you address it, all you have to do is use the S because we only have one status register. Okay? So on your logic, the only 2 that would make sense would be the 0 flag and also the sign flag, maybe. We use the 0 flag. So what would an OR do? So what does OR do down here? So I have a 16-bit number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Let's say I OR it with what we did before. What are we going to get? So I'm sorry. I'm doing this wrong. I've got an and in my mind. So what's 1 or 0? 1. What's 0 or 0? So I'm just going to copy the top number down. What's 1 or 1? What's 1 or 0? So what we're going to do with the OR mask for some reason is, so we use the AND mask to make sure certain bits are cleared, right? You understand that? We use the OR mask to make sure certain bits are set. So we could set a single bit inside a 16-bit register by just doing what? So if I had a 16-bit word, and I wanted to make sure this bit right here, whether it was a 1 or a 0, I wanted for some reason to make sure that it was always a 1. Then I would come in and I would use this OR mask right here. Did I say that bit? So no matter what this bit was, whether it's a 0 or 1, it would always end up a 1. A 1 in my answer. So basically, rule of thumb is for AND mask, we use AND mask to make sure certain bits in the word are cleared. We use an OR mask to make sure certain bits in the word is what? Said. So what does an exclusive OR give us? So this is the symbol. What's this telling us? This is telling us we get a 1 if they are not equal to each other. So if they are equal, we should get a what? 0. So here they're taking C, D, 3, C, or 3E, 3C. C, E, C, C. And then we're ORing it with 6, E, exclusive ORing it with, sorry, F2. So what would I get here? Are they equal? 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 Equal, 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 not equal, not equal, not equal, not equal, not equal, equal. So if this came up to be 0, if my answer come up to be 0, what would it tell us about the 2? It would tell us they were the same, right? If it comes up to be non-zero, it tells me they're what? Not equal. We don't care. And then we could probably figure it out using our other logic. But right off the bat, if this comes up to be 0, it indicates that the 2 patterns are exactly the same. If it doesn't come up to be 0, it indicates that they're not. And how would we find that out? Oops. Where'd I go? Oh, I think it's down the other way. So we would look at this flag right here, right? If this comes up to be a 1, it would tell me that they're equal. If it comes up to be a 0, if it comes up to the 0, then I know it's what? Not equal. The 0 flag is probably one of the most used flags out there. So the AND instruction generates a low whenever there's one used to make desired fit what? In a word of the operand equal what? 0. The OR mask. We use this to make fits in a word of an operand of what? 1. Here this generates a 1 if any bit in the word is not equal, right? If they are equal, it generates a 0. Now this is OR, ANDs, NANDs. This is ORs, ANDs. So this is OR, this is AND, ORs, and exclusive ORs, and of course a NOT. So how could we get a NAND? Put a NOT after it, right? You understand? Either in a down drop under it. You don't want to put it above it. You need to put it under it. So it'll do this one and do the next one, or you can put it in another rung. But you need the rungs pretty close to it. Everybody okay? So if I needed an OR for some reason, then I would OR it, and then I would do a what? Then I would do a NOT. If I wanted an exclusive OR, I would do an exclusive OR, and then I would NOT that. Everybody okay? Now look at the instructions. Notice the NOT only has a source. Right? You understand? So it's going to take whatever's in B3. So you don't see this. What address and mode is this? What address and mode is this? I'm giving you the register where the information I'm ORing with. Huh?
You can't see.
Can't see. Can't see.
Like zooming in.
Oh, okay. I can't make it do. So this says B3:0. Can y'all see that? What address and mode is that? What address and mode is that? Is it immediate? Is this the operand? No, it's a register. Is it direct? It's direct, because this is direct address. And this is, we're going to take whatever's in B3 and we're going to do what? This is our mask. Right, you understand? And this is B3:1, and this is where it's going. I'm sorry, this is not. So this is showing you, let me go back and redo that. This is showing you what's in B30, and this is showing you the answer after it's been masked, right? I mean, inverted. So B3:2, this is what addressing mode? Correct. And they're showing us what's in that address, right? You understand? And then here's our mask, and then we're going to store it at B3:4. Everybody okay? What figure number is this in the book? I need to go back and renumber these. What chapter is y'all of those? Y'all?
My book is 11.
Oh, okay. So I've rewritten mine a little bit. So here we're moving to move instruction. We have no logic over here, so this is all going to happen instantaneously, right? So here I'm taking whatever I'm putting over here on my input. Okay. So this is input word 1, right? You understand? And I'm going to store this one in B3. I'm going to take input word 3, and I'm going to store it in B1. Everybody okay? Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to knot whatever's in B30. Let's see how this works. I'm going to come up here. What's nice about this is we can do 16 bits. And I don't know if we can make this do it in hexadecimal or not. No, I don't think that's right. This guy's done this wrong. Oh no, he's doing it right because it's a -4. Yeah, it's not giving it to us in hexadecimal. It's giving this to us in decimal, so it's real hard to see, right? So here I've got A. We'd have to write it down. So how could we? Let's see what I'm talking about, right? So what it's doing is what Logic Pro is doing is taking this number right here and doing what? Converting it to decimal. Yeah. So it's going to be real hard for us to figure out what it's going to be. Oh, I figured out how to find what communication software it's using. Uh, when I couldn't get that program to run the other day, is over here in processor, right here under controller communication. So, not going to that. So how do we set up our communication? Use what? From Allen Bradley PLC. How do we set up the driver? So what's a driver? Not a driver of a car in computers. What's a driver?
You want information to work?
Huh?
Information. Well, I don't say information, but
Huh? I don't know what a driver is.
my brain breaks when you ask the question.
So you got a USB stick or you got a new USB device and you plug it in and all of a sudden it pops up on the side saying loading software. Right. What do you think it's loading? It's loading the driver. So computers, everything in the computer, almost everything, is controlled by software. So a program that's written to cause a specific piece of hardware to work, we call those drivers. Okay. So in computers, a driver is a little program module that's written to do what? Control hardware. So an operating system is nothing but thousands of drivers. So my hard drive needs a driver. This display needs a driver. This keyboard needs a driver. My USB port needs a driver. Everything needs a driver, right? You understand? So most of the time you go over here and you look at one of these hardware devices, and I could have found it a different place. So system and advanced setting, device manager. This shows you all the devices that's being controlled by this operating system. And what you can do, of course, with device manager, so this is everything that's controlled. So I'll come down here just to something and go here, bring up the information, and there it says driver. So this is the driver that's set up to run my hard drive. It's loaded in with the operating system. I got two options. I can update the driver or I can uninstall it. What would happen if I uninstalled it? My hard drive it would be out there. It would still be powered up, but it wouldn't be able, I couldn't access it anymore because I don't have a wallet. You don't have a driver. So here's all your USB drivers down here when you plug these devices in, and there's your driver right there. So here's a driver details. We can check for an update. We can disable it if we want to. If you disable it, you're not uninstalling the driver. You just set it up so the driver's not accessed anymore. So this is called Device Manager, and these are everything in here that the operating system controls. And no matter what I click on up here, well, that's not true. There's going to be a what? A driver for it. So what is a driver? What's a software driver? It's a specific piece of software that causes your hardware to work. So what we have to do before we start up our PLC is we have to make sure we have a driver for the communication that we're going to communicate with the PLC for. So on RS Logix, we use something called RS Links. I've got it on my start menu, but what happens is when you install RS Logix on the computer, you'll come up here and you'll get an RS Logix software thing, right? See that? And then you click on here. So this is everything I have installed that has RS Logix on it. So I've got RS Logix, both RS Logix 5000 installed on my computer and RS Logix 500. But inside here, right up here somewhere, we got RS Links. This is where you go and you configure your driver. So I'll go into RS Links, and then we'll run RS Links, and this is RS Links. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Communication, and I'm going to go to Configure Driver. So right now I have two drivers installed on this machine. I've got the Ethernet driver, So I can run, Ethernet IP. This is not Ethernet. This is not Ethernet that computers run. This is Ethernet IP. This allows me to control a control device. And then I've got the DX45. DX45 is this cable that plugs into the side right here, which is what I'm using right now. And it does not require an IP address. So as soon as I come up here and plug that in, it's going to be able to communicate with it. The DHCP, Ethernet IP requires an IP address. So I both these running on my computer. And the problem is when you create a program, it's going to be loaded with these drivers, right? You understand? So this is what happened to me the other day, is I had my DX485 hooked up, and I loaded in a program that used the Ethernet driver. So it didn't what? I couldn't communicate with it. Y'all remember the box popping up saying I can't establish a configuration with your PLC? Because it was trying to use the Ethernet driver, but I was using the 485 interface. And then this is where you can. So what I did then when I came over here and checked this, and I looked at not there, Rich. I looked at communication, and this looks like it's using the Ethernet IP driver. The problem is I don't have the Ethernet IP hooked up, right? So that means I won't be able to do what with this computer, with this thing. I won't communicate with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up under RS links again. I'll leave it running. Yeah. And then I'm going to disable. I'm going to go to my driver and disable this guy. Okay. No, I'm not going to disable that guy. Get rich. I'm going to disable my Ethernet driver. I don't want to delete it. I just want to disable it or stop it. Okay, go ahead and take a 10 minute. Okay, take a 10-minute break while I'm setting this up. To enter hexadecimal. We can enter hexadecimal, but as soon as we enter it, it converts it to decimal. So instead of using inputs, which will make it really, really hard to do, probably it'd be best just to use.
One time you got in the program, you have right click on something, follow a couple boxes that you can change. I guess like you could, whatever you change, you had like 3 boxes, hexadecimal, also, and decimal. You could change, you could pick one, and then you show everything.
Oh wow!
Remember that? I don't remember exactly how you got there, but I remember you go through the project, you had clicked on something, you right click it, and you follow up all the little boxes, like the little boxes. And you had decimal, hexadecimal, and octal. You could, with this one you click, that's what everything would show up in the card, like all of them. I don't remember exactly what I did.
It was in the project tree.
It was in one of those versions. So your data file.
Oh yeah, that's we could do that. I understand what you mean now. So if we're using the B3 register, so this is what you're talking about right here.
Right.
Okay. So this is probably be the best place to look at it. Huh?
Well, yeah, you can change it.
Yeah, but you can change it to hexadecimal. I don't know if Logic Pro will do that or not. But see, here's the options that we have. So that means if we've got Yeah, so we can't see it in the instructions. Thanks for reminding me of that. I remember it. So, I didn't record that, so I had to come back. What we're doing is, we're using our switches as inputs. Everybody understand that? So I'm inputting this whole word, input word one, which is from slot one. We're inputting the whole word. So this is where this guy's coming from. And on this one, I'm inputting from slot three, which is this guy over here. And of course, what it's doing is displaying the number in decimal, but it would be real hard for me to figure out in decimal, right? So while we have it set up, because Mr. Bevins reminded me of this, thank you, Trey, is that we can come over here and tell it to display our data files in different bases. So we can't do it over here, but we can do it over there. So right now on my source on the first move is going to be input one. My source for the second move is going to be input three. And then we're going to not it. We're going to not input zero. We're going to and B3 and B3 and B1. B0 and B1. Oh, I'm sorry. So B3, I don't know why B3 1 don't have anything in it. You see what I'm talking about? Every time I touch it, it changes. So up here we got 3,000. We got 3, 2, 4, 6, but it's got what in it right here? 0. I don't know what's going on. No, this is not. So wow. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to hit switch. So I see one of the problems right here. But this is the problem right here. So what I need to do is use a different input. This is input 5. Input 5 is over here somewhere. Yeah. It still didn't work, did it? Oh, let's go back up here and change this to back what it was. Y'all love it when I have problems, don't you? So this is input 3, right? What's that? Yeah, that's one I didn't change. No, my source, this one is B30, and this is B310.
Yeah,
Yeah.
destination,
Let's see what I've done the rest of them. No. So this was 10. Okay, so here I'm putting it in 10, right? Here I'm storing 11. Here I'm storing it. So this needs to be 10 also then. This needs to be. No, this was 1. I changed it to 10. And so this needs to be 1, which is right. This is still 1. I need to change this back to 1. I should just reload the other program. Because it's right. So right up here, I'm storing this in 0. I'm storing this in word 1. Here I'm gonna not word 0. Here I'm gonna add 0 and 1. Here I'm gonna OR 0 and 1 and put it in 12. And here I'm gonna exclusive OR 0, 1 and put in 13. That looks okay, right? Okay. Y'all know what I was doing a while ago, right? I didn't have white enabled. Yeah. So let's bring up our inputs to see what we're actually ORing. I don't think I changed that. So what was we ORing? I need to bring up our project tree and look at our inputs. And then we'll come up here and, well, this is binary, guys. I mean, binary is just as good as heck, right? So we're going to take this. That's 9, 9, 5, right? And we're going to order it with 3, 2, 4, 6. Hexadecimal. So we're going to invert this guy right here, right? So when we look at, we're going to look at our data files, and we'll look at that in binary. So this guy right here is going to be, the NOT is going to be stored in 10. And the problem is I can't look at both of them at the same time. So let's knot this right here and see what y'all come up with. Just do it in binary. You can do it in hex if you want to, but since it's already in binary for us, alright, it's no use for me to give you hexadecimal, then you do what? Convert it to binary. Or would hex be easier for y'all to copy it down? The problem with 16 bits is that you can't see all the bits at once. So what happens is you do what? You write down some, you look down, you look back up, and then you get messed up. I'll wait while y'all texting or whatever y'all do about the next time. Okay? I hate to interrupt y'all. I think it's in the syllabus that y'all are supposed to be doing that in class, right? Texting and doing stuff like that on your phone. And if you don't like that, you can go talk to Dr. Crawford, and I'm sure he'll take care of you. Dr. Crawford. He's the vice president. So, if you take this number, right, which is the what, let's look at it in hex so y'all can write it down a little better.
It was 9995.
Yeah. So 9485. And then our second one is 3246. And then what we're going to do is we're going to knot the two numbers. We're going to knot 1. And then we're going to AND the 2. And then we're going to OR the 2. And then we're going to exclusive OR the 2. see if they'll come up with what this does. And what we'll do then is we'll look at the data files and we'll have it do it recorded in binary or hex. We'll probably do it in hex to make it a little easier. So what's the top number? 9485. And what are we going with that with? 3, 2, 4, 6. Now the first one we're going to do is we're going to knot it. So it don't make any difference. You can start in the middle if you want to. I mean, because this is not math. All you're going to do is I'm going to take this first number and I'm going to knot it. So it'd be a 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, oops, 1, 0, 1, 0. Which would be 6, B, 7, 8. So you just take all the ones and make them what? Zeros, and you take all the zeros and make them 1. That's all a knot is.
But I thought when you had like 1 and 1.
But you're trying to do two numbers. We can't knot two numbers. We're going to knot one number. So we don't knot two numbers. We're going to invert one number. And if you look at the instruction, this is the one we decided to invert. So I'm not even dealing with this one for the knot instruction, right? Understand, Joker? So it's not a 1 and a 1. It's just going to take a number and invert a number. So knots don't deal. So a NOT gate has what? One input and one output, right? You understand? They don't deal with two things. Yeah, you was probably doing an AND.
Or you carry.
Yeah, we don't do any carries either. So all I did is that if we look at the instruction, the NOT instruction is knotting this number right here or inverting this number. Another name, by the way, is complement. So if you get in digital, they talk about complement. It means the opposite of. And then what do you get? What comes next? The AND. Oh, you okay, Jobert? Okay. Yeah, I can see where that could get confusing. So I'm on AND them. So this would be a 0, this would be a 0, this would be a 0, that'd be a 1, that'd be a 0, 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 that'd be a 1, 0, 0. Yeah. So that'd be 1, 0, 0, 4. Huh?
I was taking like 0, 0, 0.
But an AND takes, and what we're doing is we're working on one group at a time, right?
Oh, that's just the only reason I had a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just thought that it was 0 and 0 would do 1.
Are we okay? Yes, no? Okay, so OR. This would be a 1, this would be a 0, this would be a 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1. And so that's going to be B, a 6, C, 7. You can see the beauty of hexadecimal. If you have a problem reading this, right? Everybody can read that. It's fine, hopefully. It's not, you need to get glasses. And notice how fast you can go between those two bases. All you got to do is just what? Memorize 16 patterns. You don't even have to do the 1, 2, 4, 8, right? What most people want to do, that 1, 2, 4, 8. You just memorize those patterns. They'll get you some flashcards. Throw up the 4-bit patterns, right? You'll understand and say, well, A, B, A, C, right? You understand that. And you'll have X down in no time. And you can go between these bases just like that. And that's the beauty of it. Octal is a little harder. It's not much much harder. You just gotta learn. Octal's a little easier because you only have to learn 8 patterns, 0 through 7. But octal, it takes more digits, right? So octal will take more digits than decimal. So you're not really. So that's the 3. Oh, and I'm sorry. Then we're going to exclusive OR, right? So exclusive OR, we get a 1 if they're not the same, right? You understand? So, oops. So that would be a 1, so they're not the same, right? 0, right? 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, which would be A, 6, C, 3. Huh? And that's the 3 logics. But what we have to do is if I take the output of the exclusive OR and then I not that, then we get an exclusive NOR, right? Or if we not the output of an exclusive of an AND, we get an AND. So that gives us all our 5 basic logic gates. But these guys are working on 16-bit words. So, you know, if I was going to AND 16 contacts, I'd have to put them all in series. But I could bring in the whole input and AND them in one instruction, right? You understand that? Which is what's really, really cool. So we can save a lot of contacts with using these logic ORs and these logic ANDs. So I could do a 16-bit OR, and that would take the place of 16 contacts in a logic diagram, right? You understand that? A 16-bit OR. So which one do you want to not? Well, not the one so you can get the right answer, but so the one that we're knotting is we're going to knot this guy right here. Oops. This is what we're knotting right there. We're not knotting 2. We knot 1. When we knot, we knot 1 16-bit word, right? And all I do is I come up here, and if it's a 1 up here, I'll make it a 0. If it's a 0, I'll make it a 1. Right? So the knot is just a mirror image of what you're looking at, which would be the opposite, right?
Pretty much the knot, the second one, it doesn't even matter if you get the opposite what it is.
Yeah, you can only knot one of these. You can't knot both of them. If you knotted both of them, it'd take 2 instructions. That's just the one I decided to knot in my instruction. You understand? So when I come up here no, this is the wrong one. So, oops, that's still the wrong one. Where's my Logic Pro at? Right there. Yeah. So here when I said not, I'm knotting what? I'm knotting B30. And now what am I putting in B30? I'm putting this guy right here in B30. I'm not knotting B31, which is where I'm putting my other word. So ands, ors, and exclusive ors work off 2 operands, right? A knot only operates off of 1.
All right, let's go to one of those. 2 operands.
So here's my 2 operands, and we can change them up. I'm gonna get rid of this. Get rid of this. So Charles, you tell me.
Let me write it down.
This is the same ones we had. What do we have? We hadn't changed anything, right? So this will be a 9, 4, 8, 5, right? And then this right here is a 3, 2, 4, 6. Now, technically, you're not supposed to say 9,484 because that's decimal. You're supposed to just read. Technically, you're supposed to read a hex number just by reading the numbers. But most people will say it 9,435 because they're just so used to it. So we just AND, Charles. So what do we do when we AND? If I AND these two bits right here, we work on these a bit at a time. If I AND those two bits right there, I got a 1 and a 0. What do I have to get a 1? AND. Okay, so do I have 2 1s here? Huh? Okay, so what would I get? Okay, then you got it. So this would be a 0, this would be 0. What do I have right here, Charles? 2 1s, so I get a what? 1. Well, what do I get right here? 0. No, I won't. I don't have 2 0. What we're doing is we're working on these things one at a time, two bits at a. That's what we're working on. What do I need to get a 1? Both these on top of each other have to be 1s. Okay. Do I have 2 1s here? 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 Do I have 2 1s here? Okay. Do I have 2 1s here? 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 Okay. Do I have 2 1s here? Do I have 2 1s here? And now you're through. That's an AND.
So, like, the not you say is opposite, so, and how you do it?
All ones lined up. 2 vertical ones gets a 1, right? You understand? Anything else you get you zero.
It should not be for the 1 0.
I don't know what you're saying.
Like,
When you say it's not equal to 1 or 0, this is our answer right here. This is our answer. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at those 2 bits on top of each other. Are these both 1? Okay, so what would I write down here? 0, right? Are these 2 1? Okay, so what I write down here? 0. Are these 2 1? Okay, are these 2 1? So what do I do in my answer? I write a 1, right? You understand? So the only place that would match up in this whole thing is these 2 right here. So this would be my answer right here. So this is what's stored in that address. These are my 2 operands, and this my destination is the answer, right? So this would be source A. This would be source B. This is going to be the destination. So an AND instruction and ORs, they're basically a lot like math instructions. So math instructions, we have a what? We have a what? A source A, a source B, and then it's a function. It's a logic function.
It turns the AND into a math function.
Well, it's not a math function, but it's a logic function.
Logic function.
But as far as the instruction, the instructions look basically the same. As far as the block diagram, right? Y'all see what I'm talking about?
What I was doing is kind of related to like you got like a plus sign there. Basically, you got an and there, but you're adding them.
No, you're not adding, because 1 plus 1 is not 1.
That's not
1 plus 1 is 2.
trying to relate it.
Well, you got to be careful because I don't want to say the instruction is very similar, right? But it's not math; it's logic. So logic and math are not the same thing. So I wouldn't put a plus sign out there because that would be very confusing.
So I'm trying to relate it to where you had it set up. You think of and like any math sign, divide, whatever you want to think, but it's the and. So whatever property that and has, or that logic function has, is what you do before.
Yeah, if you understand it that way, then that's fine. But I wouldn't teach it that way. But the instruction looks basically the same, right? So what do we have? So the not But not all we got is a what? A source and a destination, because it only works on one operand, right? Okay. On an and, we're working on two operands, so we have a source A and a source B. What addressing mode are we using? We're using direct addressing, right? Because it would be stupid. We could, this is one of those situations. These could be data files. One of them could be a constant. You'll never and two constants together. Because you would just write the answer, right? You understand? That would be like your calculator only would add 2 plus 2. So you wouldn't use your calculator, you'd just write it down. You write down 4. So one of these, one of them can be a constant, but the other one has got to be a variable. It's got to come from a data file, right? You understand that? From somewhere. Ours are totally a variable because we're using a what to get the information in the first place. We're using one of our inputs, right? You understand? And what can the inputs be? They could be anything. Of course, we hadn't changed them now, but all I'd have to do is just go over and flip some more switches and we get all different answers on this. But what you do is you think about but what you do is you just work on what? 2 bits at a time. I usually start at the most significant bit. It's not a weighted number. When you add, you got to start with a weighted. You have to add from the least significant bit towards the most significant. But logic, you can start in the middle and go to the left and then go back and go to the right, right? Because all you're doing is looking at the two bits that are on top of each other, right? You understand that? So if I did an OR, that's why the OR is so big, because anything that's got a 1 in either one of them is going to give me a what? It's going to give me a 1 in the answer. In the exclusive OR, if they're not equal, I get a what? I get a 1. If they are equal, I get a 0. And that's just something you have to learn. What I do when I get confused is I just draw the symbol. Exclusive OR. Yeah, so in exclusive OR, we do this ghosting thing right here. And what I know is that this tells me what I get if they are not equal to each other. So since there's not a bubble out here, it means we get a what? We get a 1. If they're what? If they're not equal. So that means if they are equal, I'm going to get a what? 0. So an exclusive NOR would give me a 0 if they're not equal, and it would give me a 1 if they're equal. That's just the way I learned them. Because the symbol is backwards. Most people think it's backwards, but usually they think it's low active. So actually, these guys, what they're doing is they're looking for things that are not equal. Right? You understand? We could do multiple ands, so I could take this answer and I could and it with something else, right? You understand? And that way you could actually end up anding more than just 16 bits. But what we're doing when we do this logic, we're looking at what? One set of bits at a time. Just one. We don't even worry about the rest of it, right? And you can see me, I usually work from the most significant to the least significant. But you could work from the least significant to the most significant. That's your way. If I was doing math, I'd have to start with. But you're right. It's kind of like math, but it's not math because it's logic. Because this right here would be a 1. If I was adding, what would it do? That's going to be a 0 with a carry.
Yeah, that's what I did earlier.
So when you're doing carry on, which logic?
This is logic.
Yeah,
Logic has no carries.
You should be doing it using that formula as what logic.
What's that?
When you're doing it carry on what logic?
This is logic, right? I don't know what you're asking. First of all, logic is no
Like
formula.
last time
Logic is no formula. Logic is logic, right? You understand? When we start dealing with mathematics, those are formulas. There's no.
Before you started doing this, like you did one, you showed it before, you showed it up carry over 1.
Yeah, that was math.
Okay, what logic?
That's not logic, that's math. Adding binary is so much easier than adding decimal.
So on the on, we will be having just 1 0. It will be.
So whatever we do with logic, we look at 2 bits at a time, right? These 2 vertical bits at a time. I'm looking right there. That's all I'm looking at. Now, OR says any high to get a high. That's the other one. Do I have any high right here? Okay, so what would I get? A 0. Do I have any high right here? Okay, so now we can just fly down through here now that we understand what an OR is. And then I would come up here and get that, right? And so what you do on these is you just work on what? You just look at those 2 vertical bits at a time. And then do the logic. And all we're dealing with is just 2 input gates like this. So it's just like I'm coming over here and doing what? 1 at a time. I'm bringing this in right there, and then I'm bringing that in right there. Okay, guys, we really need to move on because all this is on the test. Yeah, I should have realized when they showed us this right here. But. So this would be what? This would be a NOR. So we start off with the B30. We're going to OR it with B31. Contents of B31. We're going to store it in B32. So what we're doing is we're taking the answer and doing what? Not. So this would give us a NOR. This would give us a NAND, right? You understand? This would give us a NOR. This would give us an exclusive OR. Exclusive. Yeah, what you'd do if you was trying to figure out the answer, you wouldn't look at this, you'd look at this guy down here. Because that's your final answer. And this is what you would be accessing if you wanted these. And what's nice about this, you've got 2 things you can access. B32 contains the what? The exclusive OR, and B33 contains the exclusive NOR. So what's nice about this is you have access to both those different logics in your program if that's what you needed. Output is high if one input is low and the second is high, but that's not good the way they teach that. Shift instructions. Often used to control display signs. Flashing arrows showing that the highway is closed. I've seen these all the time, right? Flash across. No, it could be, but usually they just yeah. It's these signs that have like these arrows that fly around outside like this, or you're on the highway and it says left lane closed, and they got that line up there, and then it's got these arrows flashing, telling you to go, but it's going 1 at a time, right? Understand? We can also use them to sequence start mode. So we could use one instruction to sequence start a motor. The operating address is located at the contents of the index register, which is S224, plus an offset. Now we're not going to, and this is what index addressing means. You come up here and we put what out here before, it's hashtag. So this is going to take the contents of the index register, which is whatever's in there. It's going to add 53 to it, and that's going to be where it's going to be at in the B3 file. That makes sense? So what that means is if I came over here and I gave y'all the answer I shouldn't have. So this says, B3 is the data file with the offset, right? I understand. The index register. So here I've got 234 in it. This is decimal. And I've got 53. And we'd actually add this to the operand. This wouldn't be legal. Why wouldn't this be legal? I just never thought about that. It's over 255. So, let's change that while I'm thinking about it. I did that. I don't tell you how many times I've thought this. So what would we need up here to make it less than 255? Let's put, now we want to, let's put like 27. So what's 27 plus 53? That was a good catch there, Tom. I just now noticed that. Nobody else is. So what's 27 plus 53? 80. So yeah, we only inside a single data file, we've only got 255 words. We got 0 through 255, right? This math came up to get 203. So we probably get an error there. Index addressing is primarily used to scan through tables, arrays. So later on, we're going to look at some instructions. We call them LIFO, last in, first out, first in, last out, that we can use this address to know. The bit shift left and bit shift right instructions is used index addressing, which allows shifts greater than 16 bits. Processors can automatically increment the index register to point to the next word address, which is really cool. You can do some super long shifts by going through one. But it automatically, what's nice about index addressing is all it has to do is increment the index register, and if it uses the same offset, it'll automatically go to the next word. So these are our bit shift left. So what we're doing is we're taking A, which would be, what would that be in binary? No, we need to do it in binary. We don't need numbers. So A. Okay. No, you said T and T and T and T, and this is decimal. I want binary. Now, so what's going to happen, guys, is we're going to put A, and we're going to put it in B30. And then what we're going to do is we're going to shift that sucker to the left using index address. Now, we're not going to play around with the index register, so if you don't do anything with it, it's set to 0 to start off with. That's what we do most. Now, what we have available is that your control register is always going to be one of your R6, and this is the first time we've used the R6 data register. So it's used for special instructions, especially a lot of instructions that deal with index address. So this is going to hold some flags for us. And one of the flags that it's going to hold for us is one flag called the unload flag. Now the unload flag is going to automatically set when you shift the number out of the most significant bit into, out of the most significant bit out into nowhere's going. What that's going to do, it's going to set the unload bit. And then what we can do is we can use that unload bit to cause this thing to do what we call rolls and stuff like that. Then what we have to do is once the unload bit is set, then if we want to get rid of it, we have to do what? We have to reset it. Oh, okay. So we use a reset instruction, right?
You understand that, Kurt?
So if we're going to reset something, by the way, we got another instruction too called a clear, which is basically if you want to clear out a whole word, you can just use the what instruction, the clear instruction, which is pretty cool. Okay, so this is over here in, what figure is this?
My book is figure 13, 8, 9.
Shift left is 13. Well, wait, no, figure 13.8, you're right, but it's 13.42.
Well, here we got, this is a bit shift. I don't know what the P to S means. I tried to label these things. 13 what? Okay. So what we'll do is we're going to shift B3. So we're going to come down here and we'll download it, right? And we're going to use a constant, which is AAAA. And let's bring up our status file and we'll look at our B3 file. And we'll look at it in binary. Okay, switch 1 is already made up, so it automatically went and loaded it, right? So let me go back and turn that off. So here's the register, right? I mean, sorry, this is the B30 data file. There's the AAAA, right? And then of course we're using switch 1, which is this switch. I'm gonna change it to a push button. And I do it once. What did y'all say? The whole thing did what? Shift to the left. Yeah, now this is 5, 5, 5, 5, right? I'm gonna come here and press it again. And you should see it do what? No, I've loaded it again. Oh, I'm sorry. He's using the unload bit to do what? Reset. So what happens is when that one shifts out, when this one shifted from here to what? To here, then my unload bit automatically do what? Reset. So we'll change that out so y'all can watch it shift, and we'll actually watch what happens. It's really cool. So let's go offline. And what we're going to do is we're going to we'll get rid of this wrong. No, not this wrong. This wrong. Okay, we can still reset it with this switch down here. So this is not going to automatically reset. So this is going to be cool, y'all. You'll get to see what indexed addressing does for us. Okay. So this is going to load it, right? And then we'll come up here and bring up our B3 files. And we'll keep it as binary. Okay. No, it's still not doing what I'm expecting. Well, no, we're shifting in a 0 right here. We didn't specify the bit that we're shifting in. So what it's doing is it's shifting in B30, right? So what's happening is that as soon as I did it the first time and it got a 0 right there, then it's shifting a watt in all the time. Yeah. So let's come up here and let's go offline. It could. Let's do it like this. So instead of using my shifting, this is the bit. This is where I'm getting what I'm shifted into, right? So let's try what? Let's try B315. Okay, and let's see what this does. So we'll download it. Okay, And then we'll AA. Okay. This is A. Oops. Oh, I'm not in run, sorry. You see what it's doing? So what we're doing is we're taking 15 and doing what? Just circling it back around. We should be, instead of sending this to, we should be doing an output port. Well, let's change that to an output port. Well, first of all, let's do this. I'm going to come up here and go offline. And then what we'll do is we'll change this to B115. B115. And then I'm going to download. Huh? Not yet. We'll do an output port in a minute so you can actually see the lights move. It's really cool. Then we'll download it, go to run, load it. Then we'll have to come up and bring up our bit file. Oh, sorry, I got this load. It didn't work. Yeah, because this guy right here has zeros. I was expecting for it to roll around into here. But this is Logic Pro, so it might not be working the way I expected to. Well, that didn't work. Let's go offline and send this to an output. So instead of using this, we'll use, this is Logic Pro. Sometimes it's not exactly right. We might try to put this into the RS Logic and see what happens. What's that? No, I wanted to leave that because we're going to use indexed addressing. And we're going to start off with output 2, right, .0. And then down here, what we're going to do is we're going to shift that output around. And I put that wrong, 2. It didn't come up and give me 2. Okay, so you notice, as soon as I did that, now understand we're not storing this in the output. We're storing it in the data file for the output, right? And when the PLC scans, it just it turns on the ones that's got 1s and turns off the ones that's got 0s. So we're actually shifting memory, but what's neat about this is the outputs actually respond to this. So we come up here and do this. Nope, let me turn this off. And it's not doing anything, is it? This would work. This worked. Y'all see anything I'm doing? No. It's not taking indexed addressing on my output. It's not taking that. So I might have to do this on RS Logic. I might just have to save this for another class. 'Cause this is a simulation and this guy does have certain things wrong. Huh? Yeah, I mean, you gotta think about this, is this guy wrote this whole thing, but he's got things that he should have caught. So, we can come up here and do this, and then I can still do what? I can still download it. I can still go online, right? And that's an obvious what? I got 2 arrows. What's the 2 arrows I have? Well, I put two outputs in series with each other, and I didn't give it an address. So it does a very poor job on that. So guys, what would the shift right do? Yeah, so it's going to shift from the most significant bits toward the what? Toward the least significant. And then we can roll it around too. Y'all see, we created a roll instruction. We'll demonstrate that. Another thing that I want to show y'all, in fact, it'd probably be better if y'all just come up here.